Hey everybody, it's Glenn from Fat Glenn's Fish. Today's video is part 2 of my experiences working with Nathochromis pomaxillaris. We've had some developments since I left off in the last video and I think you'll find it interesting. See you on the other side. So the fantastic news is that in April 2023 we were greeted at the front desk with this fantastic sight. This is Mum, Mrs. Nathochromis, guarding her first batch of babies. We're tucked up in the front right corner at this stage because I am running some ditherfish in this tank because Dad, here is Dad, is an unknown commodity. If you remember where we left off in the previous video, I had a pair set up in a 3x18x18 and it was all looking quite promising until it wasn't. That male actually turned reasonably aggressive on this female and things went a bit sideways for a time, to the point where I had to drop that pair of fish into a community tank to try and spread some aggression via the use of ditherfish, and that certainly stabilised things, but somehow along the way the male from the previous pair managed to injure his only eye. The sharp-eyed amongst you might have noticed in the previous video that he had one eye when he came back to me from my good mate, and unfortunately here he is now seeing out his days with literally no eyes. The poor bugger, he got a nasty injury which got quite fungusy and horrible, and I wasn't able to save it. We got back to this situation, however, because my good mate Steve still had a spare male from fish that I parked at his place a few years ago when I was able to breed these last time, and thank God for that. The female was able to choose the male she wanted out of Blind Freddy and this bloke. I put them all together in a tank, and she actually became quite aggressive and put them both in corners for a day or so until she picked this boy, and my goodness, here we are, and how good. So the first bit of new knowledge I want to pass on is something I mentioned just a tick ago, is the use of ditherfish. At the moment, these fish are actually in a 4x18 tank with some young Ventralis and Trophaeus, and the reason I did that was to just get that male something else to be worried about. We had a spate of a couple of people I know that had some of my fish from a few years ago, lost females to the male literally days apart in cities on the eastern seaboard, which is a pretty tragic result after 3 years or so to grow fish to a size where they pair up. What we're looking at right this minute is the same tank of fish a few weeks on from that first bit of footage, and I have cleared out some of the excess rocks and cover, and I've removed the ditherfish, the Trophaeus and Ventralis. And what you can see straight up is that the little bubbies are very comfortable in their safety, as are the parents. The parents aren't paying any great attention, and these little guys have spread out throughout the tank. We're picking on some brine shrimp here, and these are 2 weeks old and already hitting 15 to 20 mil and looking like little mini-me's. I do remember this from last time. This seemed to be the go with growing these out, leave them with mum and dad, and keep baby brine up, and they'll also take some dry flake food and other, but the baby brine in the morning and maybe another squirt at 4 o'clock so that there's some stuff for them to pick out all day. A huge believer in the sand too. I don't do bare bottom tanks. You want your fish to be happy and exhibit natural behaviour. These things feed off the bottom. Give them some sand. So what I've found both a few years ago and this time around is that this just seems to be the best way to get good growth on these fish. I'm sure you could strip the female and raise those fry independently, but I think we've all experienced in fish keeping how growth just seems to be that much more vigorous and rapid when you can keep the fry with their parents. And these fish in particular are a great example of where this can be successful. These are a biparental mouth brooding cichlid. They certainly both take care of the fry towards the end of those eggs developing, and one of the spin-offs with that, where the parents will swap, is that they're both able to feed right up until the fry are released, and therefore I assume you could turn these things around relatively quickly in terms of getting a secondary spawn, but that's not the way I've chosen to go. The fry here now, this is at around 4 to 5 weeks, and we're looking at fish that are 3.5 to 4 centimetres. Like, they really do rocket along at that early stage. So the next bit of advice I would offer to anybody that's got some of these and is having some luck, I leave the babies with the parents for around 6 to 8 weeks, and the critical point is when you remove these fry, you want to be really careful. The tank you're moving them to is well matched for parameters. Now, I don't think temperature is as much of an issue as the chemistry. What I've done here is I've dropped 25 of, I think I had 48 babies this time around. 25 here are going in probably a box up to Sydney in a few weeks' time to some people that I've networked with who are worthy candidates for getting some of these fish. There's no polite way to say that. I'm super invested in trying to get these things established in Australia, and I believe for the right reasons. I think these are just such a different and important thing. They've brought me a lot of pleasure, and I want to make sure these things are around for a time to come. The rest of the 20 odd I have spread around to some various tanks around my fish room. They're very, very peaceful in regard to other fish. They almost act like little bristlenose or corydoras in their habit at this stage. They are just out for a feed and to stay out of the way. Really easy fish to get along with. Now, the next thing I want to discuss is not so much a learning as a reinforcement of something that I already knew, and it's a sad indictment on the Australian fish keeping hobby. There's a vast majority of people I've met that are in fish keeping for the right reasons, and they breed fish because they love to breed fish. And yes, I breed fish in an attempt to make a profit from my hobby, absolutely. But I think there's a number of people out there that are simply in it for dollar value and maybe have lost sight of why we're here. I experienced a first-hand example of this when I posted a video of my fish on this particular Facebook page. This is the Tankanooka Australia Facebook group. It's a private group down here in the land down under, and the man featured in shot is no longer with us sadly, but was a passionate Tanganyika fish keeper with a long-standing legacy in the hobby, and hence his being acknowledged in this banner. I thought this would be no better place than to sort of tell the world of my bit of luck earlier in the year when I bred the Nathos again. But sadly, this video that I posted on the 24th of April was only live for around an hour before it disappeared. To friends that I talk to on the phone. It does still show in my feed, so I strongly believe it's been hidden by the administration from the view to the rest of the group. And unfortunately, when you look a bit further into it, there's an admin on this page that's involved in importation of Tanganyikan cichlids into Australia, and you can only assume from that I've been censored, which is pretty bloody sad. I've spent the best part of 6 months stewing on this and wondering how best to address it, because unfortunately you can't post on that page for all to see, because the admin will just never approve that post. It's a pretty deplorable situation, really. So unfortunately I've had to come to my own platform to put it out there for what it is. Enough said. Here we are, November 2023. This is my beautiful pair. I've not long taken out their recent batch of fry, and we're just conditioning them up again to hopefully have another tilt at another batch of babies. I'm growing to trust this pair now. This will be their hopefully third spawn, and they do look to be very well matched. But as mentioned throughout the video, I just can't take it for granted that he might not turn one day and give her a hiding. So I'm hyper vigilant now with the learnings that I've seen firsthand and have sort of found out through the people that I know and trust in the hobby that have had similar experiences. So I hope you've got something out of my story to date with these beautiful fish. I'm going to continue to bob up with updates here and there throughout my platform. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you on another video.